minutes before 8 is the time. Melanie, I'm keen to talk to you about the nurses' industrial action, not least because you are a nurse, but I have a government minister to get to first, so I hope I can come to you the other side, because we need to look at other stories, and indeed this is front page news for some of the newspapers this morning. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak will warn that Britain must end its, quotes, anti-maths mindset if the economy is to grow. In a speech as Parliament returns from its Easter break, reports the Daily Telegraph, Mr Sunak will say numeracy is every bit as essential as reading, and it is wrong. The UK is considered socially acceptable to be bad at maths. I'll ask you more about that later in the show, by the way. I mean, if you've listened to me any time, you know maths wasn't my strong point at school, but I've never been against it. But let's get more detail then. Conservative MP and Education Secretary Gillian Keegan joins me now. Can you give me an example of when you've seen this anti-maths mindset up close and personal? Good morning.
Well, you've just said it yourself, Nick. Good morning. You just said, it wasn't my strong point. I wasn't much good at maths. That's like nationally.
I just said I'm not anti-maths.
No, I know, but a lot of us say, a lot of people say, I'm no good with numbers. I'm not good at maths. A lot of us self-identify as not being good at maths. And I think what the Prime Minister is saying is we wouldn't dream of saying that about reading or English or something. And what we've done, and we've changed massively, is how we teach maths. So it's much different from how we were taught all those years ago. We've introduced something called Mastery, which is based on the Singaporean method in 2015, and it's really changing how kids are enjoying maths, how they're performing in maths. They've gone shooting up the league tables, the international league tables. So what we're going to do is build on the confidence we get from that to think that actually once that gets through all of our schools, we'll really be in a strong position where we'll have many more people who will embrace maths and look forward to maths.
And I understand there will be a drive to try and ensure that maths will be delivered for school children up to the age of 18. This will be, I'm sure you can expect, this will be in addition to, if we use A-levels, the 3 core subjects that they study, they'll have to do maths as well. Is that right, Secretary of State?
Yeah, so what we've tried, that's why we've got this expert panel to advise us what would be the best way of doing that. Now, if I think back to my apprenticeship, because I was rather relieved myself when I finished my maths O-level, as it was at the time, thinking, that's that. I won't have to do that again.
You're
but
far too young to have done O-levels. I'm sure you meant
I was
GCSEs.
one of the last years.
Oh, right, okay.
One of the last years.
Right.
But I was thinking about this actually when Rishi first mentioned this. And then, I looked at my apprenticeship and I'd learned how to analyse statistics, how to build a business case, how to estimate costs so that I could put a bid in, how to analyse bids from suppliers, how to read a set of accounts, how to construct a set of accounts. All of those things were all maths, but you don't think of a lot of it as maths. Also in our personal lives, how to sort of recognise good debt from bad debt, how to analyse what are the best financial products on the market. So there's many, many, many different aspects of maths. So what we want this expert advisory panel to do is to look at how we best supplement what young people are learning, whether it's part of an apprenticeship or part of A-levels or other qualifications they're doing, and make sure that they've got maths that will set them up for life. And this would put us in line with pretty much every OECD country. So it is something that we are behind on right now.
It's a bit of a rich irony, isn't it, Secretary of State, that it's you that is championing this when you've achieved what you have. You are the Secretary of State for Education. You sit at the top table of government, and you left school at 16 with your O-levels. You weren't forced to carry on doing maths for 2 extra years. Why should my listeners now, their children, why should they have to do it when they loathe maths with a passion and they want to get in the workplace?
Well, I actually was, because part of my apprenticeship, they taught me all of those things I just talked about. They are all maths, statistics and statistical analysis.
Yeah, but you weren't meant to do maths as per se as these youngsters will have to.
Well, we're not saying that they have to do an A-level or we haven't actually determined what it is. That's why we've got this expert panel to say what's the best way of doing it alongside. So actually in my apprenticeship, there was a lot of maths. What we want to check is in all of the apprenticeships, there is the right maths element. Even later on, at 42, I went back because the world had changed, data, digital, the world had shifted. I went back and did my first full-time university course, actually, age 42. So, yes, you do need to keep up in this ever increasingly highly digitised world. You do need to keep reskilling, and we also know that will happen, which is why we put a lot of focus on adult skills as well.
What O-level grade did you get at Maths, Secretary of State?
B. It was in the days
that B for
where
Bravo? B Bravo? or D?
B for Bravo. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Well, in my day, it only went up to an A, so there was no A star then, and only A, B, and C were classed as a pass. So
Yes, I remember
I got a
them
B,
well.
which was respectable enough from a comprehensive school in Knowsley, where 92% of the kids didn't pass very much.
Well, you then went on, as you say, and you've learned other mathematics skills, so I'm pleased that I'll be able to put this to you. Sam Friedman, who was Michael Gove's special advisor when he was Education Secretary, has put the following equation on Twitter, and I'm delighted you'll be able to answer this for us, Secretary of State. If you're thousands of maths teachers short of required numbers, plus you've cut real terms in pay for 13 years, plus then you introduce a policy that requires thousands more maths teachers, how likely is it to succeed? Secretary of State.
The likelihood is increased, and the probability of doing this is increased if you put maths bursaries in place for all maths teachers at £27,000. If you increase the salary for maths teachers by £3,000. If you focus on building 40 maths hubs, which help primary and secondary schools, ordinary teachers get much more comfortable teaching maths as well, up to a level. And then if you make sure that you supplement that with the right technology to enable young people to be able to learn maths in the 21st century. So that's the answer that I would give.
So maths teachers will be paid more, Secretary of State?
Well, we already have introduced a £3,000 levelling up premium, which is for maths teachers in more disadvantaged areas. But I have actually said, when we were looking at recruitment and retention challenges, which, by the way, I take very seriously, and I take that role to make sure that we have enough teachers across the board very seriously. We need to retain brilliant teachers, and we need to recruit the best graduates. I'm also looking to, just to add to the mix of things that we're doing, I have asked them to look at an undergraduate maths and physics teaching apprenticeship. So that could be people who want to use an earn and learn route, either to get into teaching as a second career or to do a degree master's apprenticeship as well. So I know that we need to do more to make sure that we have more fantastic maths teachers, but I'm absolutely focused on making sure that we do that. And if differential pay is part of the answer, that's something I've said in the past I'd be very interested in considering.
There's a couple of other areas I want to cover. So just lastly, when will these changes be brought into effect if they were to proceed?
Well, they're not in the short term because of all the things that you've said. We need to build up the...
Well, it's also a general election, so it won't be this side of the next general election then.
No, I mean, obviously we'll be continuing with all the things we're doing with maths to improve maths, to roll out the maths hubs and make sure that more primary and secondary schools get access to them. But what we'll be doing is making sure that we understand what's missing and how best to supplement that, and how to make sure that we build on what's happening. And it's actually really quite revolutionary if you go into schools and watch young people being taught maths now. They really, they really enjoy maths mastery, and it's making a massive difference, I think, to their attitudes about maths, which we probably missed out on.
OK, while I have the Beneview with me, and I appreciate this is away from your education brief, but it is reported that we could be looking at nurses' strikes until the end of the year. What is the government going to do to try and ensure that does not happen, and indeed a withdrawal of cover, A&E, ICU, intensive care, and indeed cancer wards? Secretary of State.
Well, obviously, it's hugely disappointing that there's the threat of more strikes, particularly as after the intense negotiations that the Health Secretary had with all the Agenda for Change unions. All of the Agenda for Change unions accepted a deal as a fair and reasonable deal. They put that to their members, and obviously, so far, one has the membership's accepted that. One, the membership has narrowly rejected it, and two of them we're still, I think, waiting for the ballots. And then I think what happens next is there is a NHS Agenda for Change Staff Council meeting on the 2nd of May, and that's when we hear back from all of the unions about.
But what will Mr. Barclay try and do to ensure we don't have yet more strikes and possibly no nurses on our A&E and cancer wards?
Well, we have said, that's why both him and I have been in intensive negotiations. I mean, in the case of the health unions, they did accept the offer, and they put that to their members. So, I think we've made a fair and reasonable offer. We will hope that the other unions will accept that offer. It's worth about £5,000 to an average nurse for the period that those negotiations covered. So, it is important. I think it is important that, we do put patient safety first. The unions need to put patient safety first, and we are deeply concerned about, reports about coordination, and that will just make disruption even worse. And there's so many people who've been waiting in pain for a year or two now. Yes. As a result of the pandemic, and it's really those people that we need to put first.
I'm grateful for your time. Thank you. Education Secretary Gillian Keegan appearing here on LBC. We're at 1 minute after 8. Let's get the latest news.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom, a review is